So the Corvette ZR1, it's rear-wheel drive, it doesn't have a hybrid system, and it undercuts all of the other supercars and hypercars it competes with by hundreds of thousands of dollars. This is not a new philosophy for GM, Chevrolet, or Cadillac. Behind me is the new 2026 Lyriq-V, and it does the exact same thing, just it goes about it in a slightly different way. If you want the same 615 horsepower or more in a Mercedes EQE, SUV, a Porsche Macan electric, or a BMW iX, you have to pay an extra $35,000. And despite this weighing 6,000 pounds, yes, it's an EV, it's all electric, 615 horsepower and 650 pound-feet of torque is still insane. If you've ever driven an EV, you know, at least from an enthusiast perspective, even from a daily driving perspective, the instantaneous torque is why you buy one of these vehicles. So the V Series, historically, of course, adds a ton of power, and that's not the only thing, but we have to do a 0 to 60. This is the quickest production Cadillac ever. I think it's the quickest Cadillac they've ever made. We get a big bass hit when we go into VMAX mode. That's the only way we're gonna get the entire 650 pound-feet of torque. It has launch control. Just put your foot on the brake, hit brake harder, it tells me, floor it, and then let go. That's way too loud. Okay, it's still counting down the quarter mile because we definitely did not just do a quarter mile here on our closed course, but it told me we did a 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in 3.4 seconds. So that's about 62 miles an hour. Cadillac quotes this 0 to 60, 3.3 seconds. That is quicker than a CT5V Blackwing, and more importantly, that's quicker than an Escalade-V. If you don't need the roaring V8, if you don't need the ridiculousness and just kind of abrasive nature of the Escalade-V, or the third row, maybe you don't need the cargo space of the third row, this is a real competitor. It is trying to do everything at once. It is, first and foremost, a luxury SUV, and we'll get to the interior and the cargo space in a second, but second, it's a V Series. So that 615 horsepower is 100 more than you would get in a standard Lyriq 2-motor all-wheel drive trim, and 200 additional pound-feet of torque. So like, it's a lot, even when you're not driving in VMAX mode. Importantly, on the steering wheel, we do have a button that instantaneously will just let us toggle between our drive modes. And if we just press it once, that puts us in our V mode, which is effectively our custom mode, and we can customize a few different things. So the V Series gets adaptive suspension that the other Lyriqs do not get. It's sitting lower and it's slightly stiffer. Big bumps, yeah, it's a 6,000 pound EV. You're gonna feel the big bumps without question, but this strikes a perfect balance between a daily drivable luxury SUV in terms of comfort and ride quality, and a real performance feel, and keeping the car planted on the road. The Polestar 3 does ride a little bit nicer. The air suspension the Polestar 3 has is next level, especially for the size. In the same kind of way, the ZR1, like I mentioned, doesn't have a hybrid system. It's rear-wheel drive. It doesn't have fancy torque vectoring up front with an all-wheel drive system. This does not have the rear steering that the larger Vistic has, nor does it have the mag ride that GM is so well known for. All these things that would have made this a more complex, yeah, more luxurious and comfortable experience, but all those things would have stacked up to a much more expensive price point, and that's where I think Cadillac did not miss the mark. The V will do an estimated 458 kilometers on a single charge and peak at 190 kilowatts if you're using the fast charger network. But saying network makes this sound a lot more organized than it is in reality, especially around Vancouver. See, the Lyriq's 400 volt system can't charge as quick as the Sierra or Hummer's 800 volt system, but in practice, that makes almost no difference. Here's a map containing 3.3 million humans and the fast chargers we're fighting over, showing only chargers 190 kilowatts or quicker, and it gets thin real quick. Yeah, if you option the NACS adapter, the Tesla superchargers are open to you, if you can get close enough. If you can't, you'll be fighting for the remaining 5 chargers. This one refused to connect or even show up on the map, and this one trickled out just 126 kilowatts of its maximum 190. 350 kilowatt fast charging is a great bullet point for the other guys, but the real world fails to convince me. One of the other things they've done here to help in terms of a kind of tight feel is the steering rack. It's got a quicker steering rack, and here, I'll take a 90-degree corner here. Okay, for this one, I had to go hand over hand, but most of the time, you don't have to take your hands off the wheel. That's probably the biggest change you feel immediately in making this feel like, oh, I could actually dive into a corner with some amount of momentum and actually come out alive on the other side. The Sierra EV that I drove, that was an irresponsible way to deploy, in that case, 750 pound-feet of torque, I think it was, 760. You guys saw that video. It was torque steering all over the place. It was, I mean, the steering's a lot looser in that truck because it's, well, a truck. So any rut in the road under torque, under throttle, it was all over the place. Even here on one of the bumpiest roads I know, laser straight. It's focused, it's planted. That's a great thing. Confidence is a really good thing. On the flip side, when I drove something, let's say like the Mustang Mach-E Rally, that was like loose suspension, very rear bias as well when you put it in the rally mode. So you can kind of kick the rear end out when you wanted to. So if you're in VMAX mode, you have an option to put it in competitive mode. It'll make it more rear bias, and it'll adjust traction control and stability control to allow you to have that extra little bit of fun. So like I said, it's not really loose. I don't feel like in just a random 90-degree corner like that, that I could just, you know, casually kick the rear end sideways. No, this car screams competence and grip more than anything. Okay, on a bumpy road like this, I am gonna take it out of VMAX mode. And we'll put it back into Tour. The steering's still heavy. It's got like a substantial feel to it, thick steering wheel. I love the steering wheel here. It's pretty much perfect. It has one paddle on the left side. That's not for any fake gear shifts. It is for regen braking. So like my feet are off the pedals and I can hold it. That's actually pretty powerful. And will it come to a stop? It'll come to a full stop without your feet. And of course you could do that in another way with one pedal drive. And of course you can adjust what Cadillac calls, I believe it's like the orchestrated symphony of sound, something ridiculous, of what they describe the fake kind of augmented sounds that are being pumped into the cabin to be. You can have it as quiet as you want in stealth mode, or you can have it as loud as you want. One thing though, like the Escalade-V, that is a ridiculous vehicle for a very specific buyer, and it goes all out. The CT5V Blackwing, it's loud. Like I said, they're all abrasive. Here, I feel like it was a little bit of a missed opportunity not to do something like the Ioniq 5 and did, and bring in the fake gear shifts and bring in the fake engine sounds. Why not have a supercharged V8 soundtrack being pumped into the cabin here? It's ridiculous, and it's not as if Cadillac's like, we have to be serious, we can't have any fun. They make some of the most ridiculous vehicles coming out of America today. Maybe they'll update it in the future to have that, but the car does make fake sounds on the exterior. You can rev it in neutral, which is really funny. Key takeaways here: visibility is great, it's comfortable, it's quiet. They've struck such a good balance between luxury and performance here. So to categorize the Lyriq-V and compare it to the competition, it's tough because it is so much bigger than what you would think to compare this with. The EQE SUV, the Porsche Macan Electric, like I mentioned earlier, those are both very small compared to this. As you can see, it's incredibly long. The wheelbase, like I mentioned before, is stretched out to no end. So it's one of the longest vehicles in its class, and that helps it in some ways with the handling, the very long wheelbase, and how stable it is. But then in other ways, which we'll get to in a second, it doesn't help. First off, the way this thing looks, you've got to really love it. It does kind of have that edgy feel that a lot of Cadillacs have had for the past kind of 20, 30 years, and this just, it really embraces it. It's got the lights in the front grille that come on. They have kind of a startup sequence. A car like the CT5V Blackwing kind of avoids this because it is targeting with the manual and the supercharged V8 a totally different crowd, whereas in Cadillac's EVs, they've really leaned into the, wow, look at me, it's jewelry, and it's kind of a statement. That's what it is. So you can see down here, we do have a couple of carbon bits that have been spec'd on this one. You get the front lip there, you get the side skirts, and then you get a little bit of a carbon rear diffuser. That's, I believe it was about a $6,000 or $7,000 option here in Canada. And then with the V as standard, you get these 22-inch wheels. I love these wheels. These are really cool. The spoke design. And of course, you've got giant 6-piston Brembo brakes up there as well. Other than that little V badge down there and the one I mentioned on the wheel, there aren't that many things that you could instantly just look at this car and be like, that's a V series. Okay, and this is where I've lost some of you guys. Inevitably, over the week that I've been driving this thing, I've mentioned that I was driving a Cadillac Lyriq, and more than one person was like, oh, the weird looking one? Yeah, well, that's been kind of the general consensus. You guys, please let me know what you think. It's just not easy to look at. You take one look at it and you kind of have to, you take a breath, you take a step back. It's not an easy car to kind of draw your eyes around. As you can see, the rear tail lights here, the running lights, come around the side, and I'm just not quite sure why. Now, the one saving grace here is that this car is spec'd in all black. I will say though, straight on from the back, it's not bad. That looks pretty good. You just press the Cadillac button. So one of the benefits of having such a massive footprint like the Lyriq-V has is that you get a ton of cargo space, but it is held back if you're carrying tall items by the fact that it does slope quite aggressively. Not as aggressively as the Polestar 4, which we will be driving next week. But speaking of Polestar, this has a lot more cargo space, for example, than a Polestar 3 behind the second row. You do also get some under tray storage here. That's mostly for your charging cables. And then over here for your second row, you've got buttons. That's quick. It's huge back here. The only thing, however, is the headroom. If you're above 6 foot, maybe 6'1", you're gonna be touching the ceiling in the second row, but perhaps the extra space back there was to make up for the fact there's no front. Suddenly, that massive footprint we're taking up begins to feel like vanity. When I compare this to something that costs the same amount of money, but with a real internal combustion engine under the hood, we would have things like an Alcantara headliner and stuff like that. A little bit of additional materials, more quality in the materials. Not to say it's not really nice in here, because it is. The Napa leather is everywhere where it counts. These seats are awesome. In fact, I can actually adjust not only these side bolsters, but the bottom ones as well. You can raise those up so they're a little bit more aggressive. If we were to spend this amount of money, let's say in a Volvo XC90, I would have an extended thigh cushion. I would have these incredible massage seats, which we do get here. We have massage seats, but the reality is it's just kind of pushing and expanding the lumbar in and out. There's not a whole ton to kind of sink your teeth into there. And then of course we get to this massive 33-inch screen. On the left side here, we can adjust our gauge cluster. It's very minimalist, but the resolution is super high, very crisp and clean. We can put our maps and just have it take up the entire screen, which is great. Not only the Google built-in maps, because this is a Google-based software system, but also our phone projection. This is one of the last, if not the last, GM EV product to have wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Unfortunately, the screen real estate it takes up is very small. It's not maximizing the potential of the system. And then on top of that, the rear camera system here, the 360 cam, is really good, but it's got the same problem. Some of the controls here that I would have loved to see, like, not part of the screen at all, are here. So to open the glove box, that's a button on the screen, which is convenient for me because I don't have to reach over, but at the same time, if I'm opening the glove box, I'm trying to get something out anyway, so I'm gonna have to reach over anyways. So best part about the interior is the physical climate control. And the Cadillac V-Stick, as an example, has all of that on a separate screen down here. The audio system's great. The seating position is great. There's a good amount of space. Those seats are heated and ventilated, wireless charging is hidden in the center, and there's a twisty knob for a slower way to control the screen, which is quick and easy to use. Super Cruise is also equipped, but once the initial trial period expires, you have to pay monthly to retain access, and the same goes for built-in navigation. All hail subscriptions. This isn't too much of a problem because this still has Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, but once that goes away, you have to pay monthly to keep your navigation. It will keep your basic GPS, but things like traffic, very important when you're trying to get somewhere as quickly as possible. So the conspiracy here is that GM's getting rid of the phone integration so that they make more money down the road on subscriptions. It's not that far-fetched, and if that's the case, that's like, ugh, that hurts, that sucks. So the V costs $78,000 US or $91,000 Canadian. Like I said, 615 horsepower in an EQE or a BMW iX costs $128,000 or $129,000 Canadian. $35,000 more. As much fun as it is, I'm left with the same question I'm sure many Escalade-V owners have worked hard to avoid. How much power does it really take to haul my family around? I promise the answer is less than 615 horsepower. I'm also going to guess they'd rather not participate in launch control. In that case, just one step below this, there is a totally sensible 515 horsepower Lyriq. Thanks for watching.